I've been wood turning now with the club for about 6 years. I'm not like a lot of these guys, engineers. When Andy Wolf was here demonstrating decorating and things like that, she said, most of these clubs as I travel around the nation are filled with retired engineers. If anything, I'm a social scientist, meaning I deal with the people who do things wrong continually. So what I am is a district judge. I've been a district judge it's in DC I am.
This one?
Yep, there you go. There you go. Everybody tries to do something and then see if they get caught. So that's sort of been my woodworking. It's sort of been trial and error. And I kept saying, does anybody know anything about a bowl from a board? And no answers. No, I don't know, among the board members. And so I got the challenge from President Phil to fill his agenda and be the presenter for today. So I guess the idea is you can make a bowl out of one board, or you can make a bowl out of many boards and intersperse the colors and the grain and things like that. It actually is, I believe, one of the earliest forms of segmented wood turning. In fact, the way I heard about it was in one of Malcolm Burko's posts about how to make them. Literally. Under the paper there. There it is. So it looks like this. You take the board and you mark lines on it using a scale that you decide on. So you just paste this on your thing. Now, when I started out, I didn't do that. I just borrowed the ringmaster from President Phil and started cranking away. We've got a picture of what I've ever done. This is a ringmaster. It was designed to go on a shopsmith, but they do have them for lathes also. And I've got an old Magna shopsmith that I've used and updated over the years. And what this thing does is got two cutters on it, and the board goes in like this, so the ring is being cut on an angle. All right, and you can change the angle by tilting this thing. All right, and some boards can have a thick bottom, a thicker thickness of the bowl, or a thinner thickness, and you can change. You turn it upside down, and you take the first one and you put it there. The second ring stacks up like this. The third ring stacks up like this. The fourth ring stacks up like that. And voila. Now, this was not the first bowl I made. I don't know where, my parents lived during the Depression, and my mother was born in Scotland, so we learned to reuse things. And this was an old board I had from, I think it was Forest City. It was still wrapped in plastic. It was supposed to be a nice shelf board. I said, oh, I'll use that. I didn't even give a thought as to what was in the... This is what I came out with on the first try. And I said, oh, that looks pretty nice. In fact, one of the turnings over there that's very nice has a stepped inside. I go, oh, this would fit perfectly in that. But a bowl doesn't look like this. A bowl is supposed to be, have those straight sides and be smooth. What I didn't know was that in order to have these sides match, side to side, you had to have the right angle. And the angle can change just by... Now, what angle? So this is this is going to be a right triangle here. So here's your angle right in here. You can compute this, if we can go to the next sign. Well, I guess I should look here first. All right. So you can make them out of a bandsaw, you can do a scroll saw, and you can do the best job in the long run. Lathe cut rings, I was unable to do that, and I'll discuss that at the end. Next slide. All right, so the angle of the cut is the most important thing. And it's back to high school and geometry. So we had this thing, they tell us, SOHCAHTOA, which is about sine, cosine, and tangent. And this is the opposite. All right? So the adjacent is the thickness. The opposite side is the width of the ring. So that tells you whatever is the proper width of your ring. And the angle is determined by, for a board that's 3/4 of an inch thick at a desired overlap of 1/2 inch, the tangent of the angle is listed as tangent 80 degrees in degrees equals the opposite length divided by the adjacent length. So it was 0.5 divided by 0.75 gives a value of 0.6. About this scientific calculator, if you put 40 degrees in it, it'll give you this figure. It always seems that you're dividing the largest item into the smallest item to get a ratio of less than 1, but I don't know. And on my calculator, which happens to come with my iPhone, there's a second function, which is also called an arc function, I believe, which gives you the degrees. If you translate it back from the 83, 90, it would come out to 40 degrees. So you can divide the ring width by the adjacent length, it's this. And like I said, that belongs to the devil because it's all sixes. So if you have to use a scientific calculator, or you have to have a table. There are tables available which will tell you the lengths here, or it's our shopsmith tool that does everything. It's so old, it's beige in color. So it cuts in there, and there's an equal blade. If we could see, there's another blade coming from the other side. So you just turn this wheel very easily, 6 times, and you 6 times, and if you do it right, you do the front side first, then you start in the back and you stop. I showed you what my first bowl looked like. Now on the shopsmith, there's an indexing system under here of specific holes where you can put an index pin in, but it makes very, very thin bowls. They're 5/16 of an inch in difference each time. So Phil, while he used this, created this scale here, and you can choose. You have to just figure it out how far you're going to move along that to get the right. If the two blades don't match up, if one goes in this way and one goes back this way, you can see it's 2 different levels. Now coming together here, it wasn't too bad. Next one. Okay, now my inspiration or my knowledge from doing this came from a lot of visits to the website, but the book that really answered all my questions is this by Carol Rothman. And Carol does a lot of beautiful, beautiful bowls. Harbor Freight works just fine. And in her book, she had a lot of good examples of what you should do and what you shouldn't do. One of the things she said that, and I'll pass it on to you because it applies to bandsaws too, and that is tighten this up really tight. You know, get the tension on the blade, top and bottom, real tight. Otherwise, it'll wiggle and you'll get curved edges and whatnot, which I did. The angle setting on this and on the bandsaw are tricky. Very, very tricky. So I used, this really was quite invaluable, this digital angle finder, I guess I call it. And it just was just absolutely terrific, you know, for putting this on a table and matching it up with the blade. The problem is that you have to watch out where your 0 point is, because 90 degrees here and then 90 degrees there, and then it turns out you're subtracting angles from a given baseline, and you engineers understand that. Oh, I know that old board I had, and I did part of it with the scroll saw. So the scroll saw, as you can see, gives this kind of a service even for a piece of junk wood. Real smooth, real shiny. The Ringmaster operates like a scraper, and it really agitates and irritates the wood. However, it is so solid it doesn't allow for any movement of the wood against the cutters. It is very, very precise as to the circles that you get out of it. I mean, they are really, really good circles. With the scroll saw, you have to drill a hole in at the proper angle to start your ring, and so they're at the various degrees, and so you have to insert this into the starting point of your ring, and you take an awl, which is very, very important to have a good awl, and then a really small, the smallest possible in a series of, I think it's a 1/16 of an inch. And even with it being a 1/16 of an inch, you can slide the blade from the bottom of the scroll saw right up through that, and then hook it up into the top, tension it, and you're ready to go. But you keep all your standard angles that work, and I put this for a little relief for when the drill head came down. But really, once you get it in and you make that much of a insert, you can just take it out and it'll follow itself. Which I made very thick. All of her bowls are like 3/8, quarter of an inch. They're very, very thin. I'm going to pass the book around. And these are some of her, and turning it to be what people can do for a regular lathe turner. I could not figure out a way to keep all of this stuff centered. A point where I could create a gripping point to finish the bowls, either what do we call it where you grip it? It was on here. I just flicked it over to, and I made an inset. So now it's ready for chucking. Because otherwise, these bowls, when you just put them all together in pieces, just like, how many do segmented turning in here? A few. All right. So these bowls are really rough, really bouncy, and it's just very, very difficult. You can see why she recommends grinding them, because you've got to really cut it down. What is the angle? But once you take it off and you run it on some other thing, even if you put a piece of wood on this one, next time you do it, it's going to be slightly different and slightly different. But I wanted to thank President Phil for his challenge. I learned a little bit, found out I don't know a lot about a lot of things, and I'm done with my performance.